When buy signal sir, as Ilsa laughs uncontrollably in the background, it is going to be a good day to be checking in on the hash ribbons indicator, which is an indicator that we've been following on this channel for quite some time, which has had a very high degree of calling major lows for Bitcoin that Bitcoin typically never revisits in a very high probabilistic way. So that is going to be the focus of today. And without further ado, let's just jump right on this one. We'll also go over the short term as well. I just want to continue to follow up on these until we get the resolution from these. So first things first, hash ribbons indicator right here. We do have the projection now all the way down to just above 5.5 days. I made a post on this yesterday, and it was actually at 6 days. But if you do recall from about a week and a half ago, it was showing around 20 days. So, this thing does float a lot. It is very variable depending upon where price action is for the day. But as of right now, the one trend that is very much consistent is that number go down, the number go down. Anyways, if you're not familiar with the signal or why it is relevant or what we talk about on this channel, well, it is, let me actually just bring up my main chart right here. I completely forgot to do that. So let's do that really quickly. I won't go through the full explanation, but just a very brief one, which is, again, the interplay between the two signals that we care about on this indicator, the hash ribbons indicator, which is a fundamentally based indicator going off of miner profitability. And that is the capitulation signal, which my cursor is hovering over right now, and also the blue buy signal. So the capitulation signal, as the name suggests, is capitulation, but a lot of the time we actually don't see like a tremendously nasty move to the downside based off of it, but it does give the precondition that, is required for that blue buy signal to happen, which what I've done here is I've gone through the full history of Bitcoin, and I backtested every time that we've seen that buy signal happen. And every time that we've seen that buy signal happen, we have seen, yes, there we go. Every time that we've seen, or out of all of the times that we've seen that, 85% of the time, the buy signal has indicated that whatever the prior trend low was for Bitcoin has been the low, meaning that Bitcoin never revisits it ever again on a closing basis. So, we have several examples throughout the history of Bitcoin. Again, some of them don't necessarily work out, like this one right here from 2022, but most of them are at lows, again, that never get retested ever again. So for example here, so on and so forth, these sort of things. Have been very important over time because, if you know that, obviously it's all probability, but if you know that there's a very high probability that if that blue buy signal prints, if it were to print around here, then that would imply that the last major low, which would be back here from about $92,500, we don't expect Bitcoin to close below there. Bitcoin can retest down around there. That's fine. In fact, as we go over a little bit later, I do think it's still a little bit likely in the short term that Bitcoin does get a wick to the downside, but ultimately that would be an opportunity. Now, I do want to state this before going on, because I think this has been massively misheard. While I do lean overall bullish for Bitcoin, a lot of that due to just the timing of where we are at in the current cycle, I will not be considering the possibility of an actual big move to the upside until we get that blue buy signal. So once that happens, then that gives a green light to start to look at, other setups that can be suggestive of, how high we're going to be, how high Bitcoin could potentially go from there. But for right now, until that happens, I just want to express that there is, there is a higher probability of Bitcoin in the short term coming to the downside until that does happen. So, on that note, that brings up the next setup that we've been looking at on this channel, which is a very simple setup right here, which is the interplay between that red moving average and the yellow moving average. The red moving average is a 5 exponential, the yellow is the 21. And anytime that we've seen a crossover to the downside, while both are above the green moving average, which is 55, we've seen at minimum a test down to the 55. On a correction. In many cases it's lower, but at least down there. So many examples over here over the past 5 years. In fact, over the past 5 years, every time that this signal has occurred, there has been a test down to that 55. Yes, it doesn't mean that price needs to go exactly there from that moment. This has been like massively misheard. It makes me really scratch my head when I read some of the YouTube comments on this. But as always, I think most people really obviously get this because, well, otherwise we're in real deep shit. But it doesn't need to happen all on the same day. It's just that is a general area of interest with no time component on it, although it typically does happen relatively soon. That is almost always met. In fact, like I said, over the past 5 years, it's been met every damn time. So where is that as of right now? Well, the 55 is just at about $93,000. If you recall from last week when we spoke about it, it was closer to $92,500. So it is rising up, obviously. And the longer the Bitcoin trades sideways here, the more and more that it'll naturally rise up. So, I am still looking for a test down around there. Again, I suspect that that'll happen before this blue buy signal over here. But, if all works out, then that actually really should be, theoretically, that should be like, the low. Bitcoin could spend some time there, obviously, but, in terms of price, very likely the low or extremely close to the low where, it doesn't really matter for the next sort of major trending move to the upside in this case. So again, that is available. I've also gone ahead over here and used the skeleton key in the Quant Prime service to backtest this setup. And we can see that this one has been boasting a 71.5% strike rate. For that setup being met throughout the full history of Bitcoin. I should note, however, that if you're interested in the Quant Prime, hold off for a few more weeks because we're actually be having a big sale, a big sale for the birthday of this channel. Ooh, yeah. By the way, I have a story to tell you. This morning at breakfast, we were speaking with our server, who's a very, very nice girl, by the way, and and she was telling us a story about Florida Man. Florida Man is real. Florida Man is actually a person. He actually exists, and he's here with us right now. She's telling us that recently there was a Florida man in the city around Sarasota who was carrying an alligator in his hand and running through a gas station, scaring customers with it. Luckily, when interviewed, he said he didn't remember it. So there's that. Anyways, on the topic of Bitcoin, Elsa says don't do it. On the topic of short-term downside, or at least like a test of the downside, I would say that this is extremely likely to happen, especially if you see the daily momentum pivot start to turn down, which Bitcoin's hovering around it right now. That's 96,670. So Bitcoin closes below there by end of day. I really think that we're going to get this test like very likely this week, at least again to $93,000. But from there, the picture perfect setup would be test down there, pop back up, and reclaim around 95 by end of day, something like that, and then that blue buy signal fires off. If I see all of that, that's going to make it very easy for me to say, hey, this is the moment. This is the moment I've been waiting for, and get ready for the next leg. But yeah. Anyways, moving on from there, I did want to very quickly go over the HPDR bands here. New weekly opened for CME, and despite CME actually closing a fucking hair above the median last week, it has obviously opened up very, very much lower than the median for this week. So that would have made things a little bit more easier to kind of call it low if Bitcoin were massively above it. But in fact, we have literally the opposite situation. So I do think best case scenario for this, for this week, or sorry, not best case scenario, but just the range for this week based off of that is going to be somewhere around like 101, about 101 to the upside versus about 92 to the downside. So Bitcoin did get a wick down around there. I still think that that's probably going to be a good area if this is going to indeed work out. I mean, if you are bullish on Bitcoin, I suspect that will be it. But of course, there could be a situation where it comes and tests down around there. It comes there, and we do not see the blue buy signal fire off. So it's really important that I want to see all of these things kind of working together. Otherwise, the possibility of an actual reversal here still exists. So I think that's where I'll leave things for today. Just kind of keeping an update on this. I've been getting a lot of questions about it. Hopefully that was in some way helpful. As always, if you find this content valuable, consider liking, subscribing, and we'll continue to update on this particular setup. Hopefully, within 6 days, we do have that buy signal. But until then, I'd like to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.